Hey, this is Peter Reed Miller from On Sports Photography with Peter Reed Miller. I'm here today with my good friend, tremendous photographer, Patrick Murphy-Racey. Pat is a freelancer. He lives and works in the Knoxville area. And Pat, why don't you kind of give us a rundown of how your career path has gone?
Wow. Let's see. My career has been a series of fortunate changes. I get to one place and then I took a photojournalism class at Marquette University, really enjoyed it. And then about 3 weeks into that class, I kind of began to imagine what it would be like to actually be a photographer. And that put me on a path to the Milwaukee Journal, where I got a part-time job. And that got me into a bunch of internships at different newspapers. And by the time I got my first full-time job at a newspaper, I kind of realized that newspapers wasn't going to be the end-all, catch-all, and magazines seemed to be the place to go. And so I signed up for Rich Clarkson's photography workshop and went to Los Angeles. And I was at the pool. I don't know if it was USC or UCLA, one of those two.
It was no,
Long Beach,
Long Beach State, I believe, or Long Beach City College.
And I was shooting. I was shooting a 600 f4 with a 1.4 converter on it for water polo. And this guy who I didn't know walked up to me and said, "Hey man, would you like to try an 800 5.6?" And I was like, "Yeah, who are you?"
Good to know my fame preceded me.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know anything. I didn't know boo, about Sports Illustrated. And so I remember following you to your car. It was like an old Mercedes turbo diesel.
Yellow.
And you opened up the trunk and hauled off this 800 5.6, of which I had never seen one in my life before. And he handed that thing to me, and then I went and shot water polo and fell in love with the 800 5.6. Oh my God, that was an awesome lens.
It was.
But that's how I started. And so it was always, a thing where I was trying to reach the next level. How do I get to the next level? How do I get to the next level? And when you're trying to crack the level of Sports Illustrated, you almost have to have a Sports Illustrated photographer to help you. And Peter was my help and my mentor for a long, long time.
And you did about 600 assignments for Sports Illustrated?
Yeah, it was very fortuitous what happened to me. I live in the southeastern United States, and the college football area of SI was booming and for circulation. And so they tried this experiment, and they started something called Sports South, which was kind of a wraparound or insert whatever into the southeastern U.S. And so they covered the SEC really heavy. And I picked up a ton of football work, for which there wouldn't have been assignments prior to that Sports South thing going. And Jeff Wag, was the editor of that. And so what happened very quickly is I had, through Peter's help, I also got to work with VJ Lavero at the Lavero Group and was shooting for Upper Deck. I was shooting NFL every weekend pretty much. And that was another connect that Peter helped me with. And so then Jeff started seeing that I was busy, not just shooting what he was giving me, but I was doing other things. And then I got some SI assignments for the NFL, and then that led into college basketball. It led into portraits and lots of other things.
Cool. And so these days, I know not these days because it's very tough right now.
Yeah.
But say before this all started, what was the bulk of your work?
Honestly, I do a lot of sports photography, but it's more for educational purposes. So I've had a big shift in my career where there quite honestly aren't that many assignments anymore for sports photography, and those that exist are really low paying in their buyouts where you don't get to own the images. And so I made a decision a long time ago that I just didn't want to participate in that. So everything I've ever shot, I own in terms of the images themselves. And so really what I do now is a mixture of what I would call high-end portrait work with, lighting specialty, a lot of lighting I learned from you, Peter. And then I do a lot of higher education work where I go in and work for universities and what's nice about me and my skill set is I can come in and I can do a portrait of the president. I can do a baseball game. I can light an arena and shoot basketball. And I can do an interview with a professor in video. So I have like lots of skills, and they don't have to call 3 different people to do 3 different things. They can call one guy and come in, and that's what I've been doing a lot lately.
Exactly, and I think that's really one of the crucial things of surviving in this industry these days is being able to just. I mean, nobody survives as a sports action photographer. Nobody makes a living doing that. I don't believe.
Maybe some team guys have good deals. I don't know. I've never been a team guy, so I'm not sure how that works.
But the work of a team guy now is probably 20% action and 8%
PR.
Yeah, PR. So yeah, I know. Grip and grin. And the video is a boost. And I think this points out something that I always stress in my workshops when people are looking for how can I get into the business, how can I work. The college market is great. I mean, all these colleges, not the big schools, but down to the smallest little college in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, they need pictures. They need pictures for their website because those colleges, it's a selling business. And to sell, they need pictures and good pictures.
Right.
And I think that's sort of an honest that they need some sports, they need some campus life, they need some portraits. And this is the thing where I mean, I started out at USC shooting for the yearbook, and it was tremendous experience because I shot sports, I shot a lot of sports, but then I had to do portraits, and I had to do campus life, and I had to do features, and all this stuff. It was like one great big Life magazine assignment, and I think it's well through the years.
Yeah, I agree. You know, being on a college campus and having multiple people using you for that university or that college is a really good thing because it's a community. It's just like a daily newspaper. You're covering your whole county or whatever circulation area. Well, your circulation area is really small. It's the campus, and it's really cool to sometimes I'll do something for sports information people, and then they don't necessarily share those images with the people that do the view book.
Right.
And so I'll reach out and say, hey, I just got hired by you guys for your sports information, and there's some nice pictures that show your stadium or your whatever. And so it all feeds in. But I agree. I think that, and also there's a couple friends of mine that have gigs at private high schools, really, really high-end private high schools. And one buddy of mine up in Cleveland does a ton of stuff. Al Fuchs, he works for a Jesuit high school there, and he's busy all the time. And he's doing tons of sports, portraits, video. It's really cool. So I just need to find more of those.
Well, private high schools now are big business, and they're taking in a lot of money. And again, they've got to sell. They've got to present view books. They've got to have websites. They've got to make students want to come and make parents want to spend $10,000-$20,000 a year for a high school, which I think some of them do. And it's almost like a small college.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I've done a couple of things. Sometimes if you're trying to find new work, and what I'll do is I'll go in and say, hey, give me a pass to your game, and I'll shoot some stuff for social media, and I'll craft a square for you for Instagram, and I'll send them to you during the game, and that really gets their attention.
Yes.
And then after the fact, they call and say, hey, we got this really beautiful square picture for Instagram, but it's only 72 pixels and it's 8 inches square.
Yeah.
We need the big one. And I'm like, yeah, that wasn't part of the deal. And that's where you start going, I've got a 147 meg file for you, but it's not free. And, so you can kind of, get to set the hook, and then and then you kind of say, I'd love to have all your work or whatever. And occasionally, there's a couple of publications that still are out there that I just love to work for. One of them is the Chronicle of Higher Education, and that puts you right into a whole bunch of different universities. where you're in contact with the people that are, have budgets and stuff. And they're like, oh, well, can we get that? And then, I own the stuff. And so you do a 90-day embargo and then make a deal for that and say, hey, I'd love to do some work for you. If you like this, and you saw how fast I did that, for your impatient president, or whatever, headmaster, I'd love to get some work. So yeah, you have to be aggressive these days to get in. But the cool thing for people like us that have such a back history of sports is that we're fast. We forget how fast we are.
Yeah.
And, when you go in and shoot a portrait in 15 minutes with 3 lights in an office and you're done, and the people are going, holy crap,
Yeah.
let's get some more people. Let's go to some more offices. Like, they didn't realize it could happen that quick. And then the other side of that is sometimes I have to slow down, to really do a killer job. You have to pace yourself. And, so on the assignments where you have a little bit of time, you make the most of that time and make the picture even better.
Yeah, I always felt that if I had 15 minutes, I could get a picture probably 85%, 90 to what I really wanted. But if you gave me another hour, I could get it all the way.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, and
go ahead.
No, I agree with that. And the 140% pictures are what people remember us for. And
yes.
A lot of people are, really whining right now, and rightfully so, about Corona and the pandemic and everything. And I just did an assignment a couple days ago. It's the 5th assignment I've had since March 20th, and I went in there and I killed it. I mean, I really, so I think for a lot of people right now, if you get work, you cannot afford to back off. If you are wanting to still be standing when the pandemic is over and things to return to whatever normal will be, whatever that is. I don't know what that looks like, but you've got to, you can't blow assignments off. Even if you take something that's not making you a lot of money, it's going to be on your Instagram feed if you're proud of it. You got to. And so the people that are going to survive long-term after coronavirus is whatever we do, if there's a cure or something like that, it's going to be people that really worked hard and showed the difference between them and everybody else,
Yeah, I think that's exactly true. I mean, I think there are opportunities. They're few, but the fact that they're few means that you really have to make the most of them.
Yes. And I think that's what I learned so much from you, Peter, is like, being on assignment, not just for SI, but some of the advertising gigs that we did, that Visa, I'll never forget that Visa shoot we did. It was unbelievable.
That was fun.
God, it was, I had no idea that a shoot like that could exist, and, if you don't mind, I want to talk about that real quick. It was
sure.
It was absolutely insane. Like you rented it. I think it was North Wilkesboro Speedway.
No, it was.
And
it
you
was
rented
Rockingham.
that.
It was
Rockingham. You rented Rockingham, and it was the day after the race had just raced there because you wanted all the tire marks to be in the pit. And we were working for Visa, the credit card thing, and you had the Visa car, but you paid 4 other teams to provide a car with crews, so it was realistic, a smoke machine for burnouts. It was just insane. And I brought every light I owned and drove in a Land Cruiser from Knoxville over.
Well,
and I just, it was just amazing. It was an amazing assignment.
And then I had a 50-foot man lift that I shot it from. I mean,
yeah.
Those days, they're pretty much gone, but no expense was spared. And even
That's right.
in the heyday of Sports Illustrated, we did some enormous shoots with big crews and rental and this and that, some of which ran in the magazine, some of which never did. But to have that, so I find it a little tough these days to know that I'm probably going to have 1 assistant, not 3. And not going to be able to rent that that big studio, that big nice studio, and all that stuff. But it's still, it's still making the best of what you've got. But
that's right. Exactly.
Yeah, the one thing I'll conclude on that job is that this was probably the '90s in the South.
Yeah.
And honestly, when we were done, there was no one left at the track. So I had the minivan with 5 people and all our gear, and I thought, let's drive around the track.
We're gonna drive on that bank turn, man.
Yeah, it pushes your butt right in the seat. And then I thought,
Yeah.
whoa, what if I wrecked this minivan with all my crew and all
Oh.
the film in it?
Yeah.
So that
Right.
was a short-lived hot lap, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. That was.
But I mean, going back
But
to basics. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, for me personally, my link to higher paying jobs and higher profile assignments was by attaching myself to you as an assistant. And for many people, especially in New York City, this is how it works. If you want to get to the next level, you've got to start working with or for another photographer who's already at the level you want to achieve.
Yeah.
And this is a great way to do it. And the other way is, mentoring online and workshops and things like that. It's really the only way to really understand how to do things and at another whole level. And, I appreciate so much the time and what you invested in me and trusting me for I remember being at David Robinson's house and we were shooting him playing piano in Houston.
Yeah.
And that was a cool assignment. I mean,
yeah.
It was I never felt badly that I wasn't being paid as a photographer to do those because I was in school. You know what I mean? I was in graduate school. So.
Well, I always, I mean, again, on those jobs, I usually worked with a couple of assistants. So my first assistant, as you were, I always wanted someone who was totally thinking about the job, where if I suddenly contracted the worst case of stomach flu and had to just lock myself in the bathroom, you could shoot the job. On the other hand, I don't, what I don't like are sometimes an assistant who thinks they should be shooting the job. So there's kind of a fine line there, But
right.
Let's go back to basics a little bit. I think breaking it down, because we both talked about how you can't just be an action photographer, and honestly, action photography is so much less of a skill than it was.
Now,
yeah.
That's
the
right.
cameras. I mean, I look back at
they're awesome.
I look back at my 70s and 80s NFL stuff, manual focus, manual exposure, 4 or 5 frames a second, and I'm amazed I got anything. But now, basically just, point the camera at the field and push the button. And it's, I still think there's an art to knowing where to be and when to shoot and all that and finding those special pictures. But it's not the development curve that it used to be. But I think the area where it requires study and practice is the lighting, is the portraiture.
Yes.
To have an eye for how to make someone look good and have an eye. I mean, lighting has gotten a lot simpler too. If you go with the battery monoblocks, and you got your remote.
High-speed sync.
Yeah, high-speed sync.
High-speed sync. I can't remember how I worked. I mean, when I think back about, syncing a 250 or even 500 Hasselblad, that just sucks, man. I mean, what we can do now with high-speed sync, it's like going on vacation,
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember, to get if you're going to be in full sun and you want to light someone, you want to overlight them from the sun, that used to be at least like 2,000 watt seconds. The light source can be pretty close. So now if you're out in a golf course or someplace like that, you're running a couple of generators. It used to be crazy. It was my least favorite thing to do. And now, totally different ball game. But still, I
remember shooting a job. I shot Hank Aaron at home plate at Turner Field back in the day.
Wow.
And I used Dynalight. I used 2 Dynalight 2000 packs into a bitube head. And, it was just a massive amount of light. I mean, I was afraid I was going to, blow the dugout, circuit breaker or whatever. But
circuits, you never know.
Yeah. And it was a wide shot. It was a 50 millimeter shot low, looking up at the entire stadium.
Oh God.
And so the light couldn't be close to him. That's why I'd use 4,000 watt seconds, and it worked. It was great. But man, what a pain,
Yeah. Yeah, no, those were the days.
Yep.
But still, I think even with the technology in strobes, there's still a basic knowledge of light and
Yes.
how to use it and how to modify it, and then sort of developing a sense of when to use it, when to use that big softbox up close, or when to back off, when to have a beauty dish. Um, that's
Yep.
something that, as you say, develop by working with other people. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. And
and
I
kind of,
love using Fresnels. I love Fresnels, man.
yeah,
I really dig those. And there's some really cheap Chinese made Fresnels now that just attach on the front, off you go. It's really cool.
yeah. The whole, I mean, that's the other thing. The expense. If I mean, yes, you can still buy top of the line. You can still buy Pro Photo and
Hmm.
spend a lot of
Sure.
money, but you can come within about 80 to 90% of Pro Photo with stuff that costs twenty
A
percent.
fraction.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
that's all. It's
Exactly.
it's so amazing to just flip through Amazon or flip through B
Yeah.
and H and see, you know, 275. Something that would have cost you $1,200 and probably still would if it was a Pro Photo. Or I'm not singling
Yeah.
them out, but one of
Right.
those few
Right.
remaining brands that you can get something very nearly the same for, like I said, 25% of the cost. But which
Yeah.
is good because that was always I mean, when I started out, a Dynalite pack and three heads, which I would consider a minimum setup,
Bare
was
minimum. Bare minimum.
$2,000.
Yep.
Eight or nine for the pack, 300 for each of the heads, cables, and then you're not even talking stands and
You have
umbrellas
no
and things.
modifiers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can do a full lighting kit like that for a whole lot less now, whole lot
Yeah.
less.
But I agree. So many people approach both of us throughout our careers and they want to be sports photographers. And you start talking about lighting and they're like, look, I just want to go to games. And they don't
Yeah, yeah,
understand.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
get it. And lighting is the key to
yeah.
becoming a real sports photographer. And the jobs that are going to require lighting are the ones that will pay.
Yes.
You can make money. There's cash there. There's budget
Yeah.
where there may not be any budget for action. So, I really, you've helped me to understand how important that is. And I totally agree.
Well, I mean, that was the key for my particular niche at Sports Illustrated. I mean,
Hmm.
we had some tremendous photographers, tremendous
Oh,
action
yeah.
shooters, and some great portrait guys. And I was kind of like a really good action shooter and a pretty decent portrait guy. So I kind of fit. They
Yeah.
knew they could send me on a story, for example, that involved covering a game and then staying around or going in early and shooting a portrait of the coach and some of the team guys and everything. They didn't have to send two
Right.
people. And this is the
Right.
same thing with the market now because no one wants to pay two people. They want to pay one
Right.
person and get as much as they can out of them. So
Yeah, exactly.
these are
I was
things.
just thinking about, the what you just described. It was that Barry Switzer and who did that cover
Yeah,
at
Emmett.
the
No, it
Dallas
wasn't.
Cowboys
That
training
was
camp.
Emmett, Troy, and Barry.
Yeah,
Yeah, three
exactly.
shot.
I mean, huge, huge
Oh
stars,
God. Yeah.
and we waited for 3.5 days to get
Yep.
them for like 3 to 5 minutes
And
tops.
in
And
some little San
oh man,
Angelo, Texas.
yep, middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and then
It was,
and then
and it was
that
150 degrees outside.
at least. And then that weekend,
Yeah,
shot a Cowboys preseason game.
right,
To complete the
right.
story because they always had to have some action too. But
Yeah, exactly. Those are the days, man.
yeah, yeah. But I think that skill set, just expanding the skill set, is really crucial now. Again,
Yeah, I agree.
somebody's just going to go out with an autofocus camera and a fairly long lens will make some pictures and they'll think, okay, this is great, but
Hmm.
nobody's going to pay you for them.
Yeah. And now the other thing too is there was a barrier. There was a financial barrier for the action side too, because a 402.8 was $5,000
Yeah,
used. You know what I mean? A 600.4 was $6,000 or whatever it was, and now they have all these wonderful, slower zooms that have like real reach. The 100 to 400, the 2 to 5, and I mean, there's just all these 5, 6 lenses now that are just so good
yeah,
because the cameras are so good in low light, and that's not even a barrier anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, in a sense, the whole business is a lot easier to get into, but a lot harder to find work in.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people that want to do it, and I find more and more that people are really weekend warriors. They're part time at it. They
Yeah,
have a real job, and then they want to do the photography, and it's hard for those of us that really photography is our only source of income to compete with those guys, because they don't really, if they get half of what I get or a third of what I get, it's still extra cash for them. Where for me, it's like a livelihood.
well, I have in the past done a workshop up and we do an Oakland A's game up in the Bay Area. And there was always, and very few people, the reason I could do it is because there are not a lot of media covering the Oakland A's. But there was always one guy in the corner of the photo well shooting away. And somebody started talking to him. And it turns out the full time job at Lawrence Livermore Labs. And he was working for MLB and he was getting $75 a game, full buy.
Wow,
But he could afford to do
wow,
that because he wasn't
right.
supporting himself. He
He
wasn't
loved it,
supporting,
right?
a wife and a child, a
Yeah,
family, and that's what you
sure.
see a lot.
Yeah, you do definitely. And I don't want to discourage anybody that wants and has a true love of sports action photography. I get it; it's so much fun when
Yeah,
you nail that
it
image.
is.
It feels great, and there's a lot of there's a lot of moms out there and dads that shoot their kids, and then they just keep going after their kids are out of high
Yeah,
school or whatever, and they just love it, and they become the person.
yeah.
And I understand that love of the game, and that is cool.
No, I get a lot of those people in my workshop who just they start out because
Yeah,
their son or daughter is playing, and then next thing you know, well, I'm shooting for the whole team, and next time I hear from them,
hmm,
well, I'm doing the whole league now, and there's some other
yeah,
leagues that are, and it's great, it's satisfying, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
love. I mean, yes, there's
That
money,
is,
and that's a whole nother thing, but it's really love and passion for the game and being there. The
yeah.
excitement. I always felt as a sports photographer, you were on this weird intersection. Behind you, 50, 75,000 people all putting their energy right down onto the field. And in front of you,
Mhm.
players, whatever, let's say football, because that's kind of my favorite, 22 players putting all their energy out, and it's washing back and forth over you. I always got that feeling. I always
Yeah.
loved it. I think that's the thing
I've
about it.
never heard you say that, but I get exactly what you mean. I
Yeah,
totally, yeah, that's a neat analogy.
yeah. Except I never
Yeah.
wore earplugs, so now I'm deaf. But the energy was
What?
great.
I started wearing earplugs every single assignment about 20 years ago,
Wow.
but the first 10 years of my career, I didn't, and
I
I'm suffering now,
Yeah, I
definitely,
never
you know.
wore them, and I just
And there was a lot of rock and roll that I played way too loud
oh
too.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Well, I rode managed a band for a while, so I had that as a
geez.
starter before I ever got that noise. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the worst is the college basketball game when you're in front of the band. You're sitting on the floor and the
Oh,
band is right behind you.
yeah.
That's the
Oh
all-time
man,
worst.
it's awful. Yeah.
But
Yeah. And the better bands are loud. The really
yeah.
good ones
Oh
are
yeah,
really
yeah,
loud.
yeah.
So
Their
that
job is to be
brass is
loud.
just right. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, you got any last thoughts? I think we've covered a lot here, and just kind of wrap it up.
I just wanted to say that I've really loved our relationship through the years. We both have like a love affair with optics and lenses,
Yes.
and we have kind of, I think, sometimes similar favorites. The super long glass. I love that sort of in between like 70 and 60, 70, 80 millimeter for portrait work is really
Yeah.
cool on full frame. And just I remember a lot of times we would go with the Hasselblads on a shoot for you, and you'd have a whole bag full of all this glass, and you'd always grab the 100 and the 60
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Those are your lenses. Um, and I just love the 200-1.8, 202. That is just such a beautiful. Very few people use that lens,
Yeah.
and
I never liked it. I've bought and sold more of those
I
lenses
loved
than
it.
I can count.
Yeah.
Every couple of years, I gotta get this. Now it sits on the
Yeah.
shelf for 2 years and it's gone. But I do appreciate your love. I know there are people who are very passionate about that focal length.
Yeah. But anyway,
No, I
and
think.
it's nice now that the modern like wide angles are so much better than they
Oh
used to be
God,
with
yes,
distortion. Because
yes,
I mean, I love shooting a 24 wide open at 1.4,
yeah,
and it works. It
yeah,
works
yeah,
beautifully. It's like, wow, I never would have thought to use that lens that close to a person
yeah,
in the past. You couldn't do it. You just bend them all up into, But
yeah.
yeah, people always say about the features of the camera have improved and the sensor, but the glass is so much better than
Uh,
it was.
yeah, I think that when you're talking about that portrait, I mean, I'm not saying always because there's a lot of different ways you can shoot it,
Hmm.
but I given a choice, if it's a one-person portrait, I would like that semi-wide angle lens so I can get some intimacy. I don't want it super
Yeah,
distorted, but again, as you say, there's a lot less distortion in the lenses. But I want that feeling that they're close to the camera, and that's what's great for there. But again, for the outdoor sports, for the field sports, the 6. I don't use the 8 as much
yeah,
anymore because the digital files are so good you can crop. But the
right.
6 is, I think that's what we all grew up with, and we'll probably live and die with it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Love the 6. And even nowadays, if you're in an NFL game or a big college game, you sometimes won't see a 6 at all.
No,
It's all 4s and 3s and extenders, and so people really leave that go. I think it's not as versatile. It's not as versatile lens,
no.
and you have to have a 4 and a 6 if you have it. But the 6 is just my favorite thing. I think you've ruined me on that too. Thanks a lot.
I know, but that's to your point. Yeah, you started me thinking, and I think how rarely I really do see someone with a 6. I mean, I think when I shooting games in L.A., almost never. I know down in
Hmm.
Dallas, the Cowboy games, there are a couple of guys who always out there with the 6. But a lot of times those guys are part of a newspaper team, so they know they've got three or
Yeah,
four people to catch
they
them.
can do it right.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can. Yeah, and using a 6 for football takes terrible risks that often don't work out. But
yeah.
man, when it does work out, it's wicked.
Yep, yep.
So yeah,
Well, great, Pat. I think it's been fantastic catching up. I mean, I don't know when we're actually going
definitely.
to see each other again, but it's
I
good to see
know.
you.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
California seems so far away right now.
Oh God. So does
It's
Tennessee,
so
buddy.
far.
So does
Yeah, I know. I
Tennessee.
know.
But
Yep. Yep.
again, thank you for doing this today. It's been great talking to you. I think we've got hopefully said a couple of inspirational things or informative things, and
I hope so.
yeah,
I hope
yeah,
so. I sure
yeah.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Cool.
And I would just want to say to you, Peter, thank you for taking a risk on me. I mean, years ago, you saw something in me in my portfolio, my attitude. I don't know what it was, but you were like, "Yeah, I'm going to help this kid." And boy, it changed my life. It really did. So thank you.
Well, your enthusiasm for one thing, and your responsiveness. It's like
Yeah.
if I give somebody, a lot of people, an 800, and they shoot a few frames and they'd realize that it was really long.
Hey, this is
And
hard.
yeah, it was hard. And so they kind
Yeah.
of look around to see if you weren't looking, and they put it down. But you stuck with it,
Yeah.
which is great, Pat.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's
Yeah. Definitely.
something through your whole
Cool.
career, and you've been a great friend to me and a great person to have on
Oh,
assignments, and
goes two ways, man.
great guy
Definitely.
to have at the workshop. So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
all right, well, stay safe, take care. Let's hope for better
Yeah. You
days.
too.
Well, that was Patrick Murphy-Racey, one of my really, truly best friends, lifetime friends, and a tremendous photographer, a guy with great enthusiasm, great talent, a hell of a sports photographer, and a really good portrait shooter as well. So it was good to talk to him. I hope somebody drew some inspiration and some knowledge from it. Again, as always, thanks for watching. And if you haven't, just hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you'll know all about what's coming up. So, and I've got some good things coming up too. So, stick with it and stay safe. I want to thank my friends at GF Crew for making this video possible. If you want to make money shooting action sports, check out GF Crew. Go to gfcrew.com to to join. It's free. They have a whole process and an app set up to help you make money shooting sports. Check it out. Get started today.